Two-time MVP Giannis Antetokounmpo is ready for a new home at the February 5th NBA trade deadline or in the offseason as several rival teams make aggressive offers to the Milwaukee Bucks for him, and the franchise is starting to listen, league sources tell ESPN. Now, a couple of layers of this, Caroline. Number one, Sham sort of hedges himself a little bit. It could be February 5th, or it could be the offseason, but it does sound like this is the closest we've ever gotten to actually Giannis saying, I want out, I want to trade. And it feels like this is the closest we've gotten to an actual separation.
Well, and I think we have to, look into the words very carefully because Shams is somebody that is very powerful, that has connections to very powerful people. He doesn't just type things into a tweet and press send. It says two-time MVP Giannis Antetokounmpo is ready for a new home. How often do we hear tweets that say that? We don't really hear that very often. That made me raise an eyebrow when I first read that because I thought, ready for a new home. Exactly. It's the funniest phrasing. It's not Giannis Antetokounmpo has requested a trade. Not Giannis wants out of Milwaukee. It feels like a very delicate and soft and sensitive way to couch this. Because let's not forget, it was not that long ago that Giannis said, I won't ask for a trade. It is just not in my nature. It's not who I am. We know that about Giannis, that he is a fiercely loyal individual. And I do think that Giannis does have a lot of love and adoration, not just for the Bucks organization, but for the city of Milwaukee as a whole. He knows what he means to the people of Milwaukee and to Bucks fans everywhere. So I think that was a very deliberate and intentional phrasing of that tweet from Shams from Shams, excuse me, look, Giannis isn't requesting a trade. Giannis doesn't want out. Giannis is just simply searching for a new home.
Well, you're right, but here's the thing. My mama raised me with some isms, and one of her favorites was people in hell want ice water. So, I get Giannis may be ready for a new home, right? But there is some element here of the Milwaukee Bucks got to look out for the Milwaukee Bucks. If we're going to
it's a
sit here
business.
and start – right. There is no path in my mind where Milwaukee says, oh, but Giannis wants a new home, and we want Giannis to be happy, so we're going to take less than market value. Now, the Bucks are going to have to figure out what makes sense. And that's where this one gets a little complicated, Caroline, because if I'm Milwaukee, here's the thing that I'm first and foremost going to acknowledge. I need a bunch. I need a bunch back for Giannis, and I need hope. And I don't think any young player that they're going to get in return provides hope. I think the only hope is going to come from so many draft picks that you can sell everybody in the world on we are starting a rebuild. I know rebuilds are tough, especially in smaller markets, and that is Milwaukee. But I think you have to take the OKC approach here. At some point, OKC had to look around and say, I know we were in the finals, but that's not who we are anymore. We're going to take the approach of stacking a rebuild and trying to get this thing right in the future, which is why, as you see here, they've signaled they're willing to wait until the offseason because they need to, even though this news comes out and we feel like it puts pressure on Milwaukee to get it done right now. Milwaukee needs to fight in the court of public opinion to make sure that people don't think that they're going to take an offer that's below market value simply because of the timing here. If I'm Milwaukee and I got to run this thing into the summer to get what I want, I will do that all day, every day.
100%. Let's remember, it's not Bucks.gov. This is a for-profit organization that is in the business of winning basketball games. So, yes, of course, the Bucks want to do right by Giannis, and we've all known it, right? I don't think that Shams tweet should have come to a shock to any of us. We have seen the writing on the wall. We've heard from Giannis. He just sounds utterly miserable in Milwaukee. That we just probably seen the writing on the wall, whether it's going to happen before the trade deadline or this offseason. It just didn't feel like Giannis was going to be a Buck for the entirety of his career, much less for the short-term future. So NBA trades are incredibly complicated. You have to find the right salary match. You have to get what you want in return. If I'm the Bucks, I view Giannis as my ticket out of the mess that they got themselves into, trying to please Giannis and trying to keep this championship window open. The Bucks are stuck. The Bucks are stuck in salary hell. The Bucks have, are up to their ears in cash that they owe. The Bucks just don't really have very many avenues out to becoming a championship contender on the other side. Trading Giannis That's their ticket. That's their ticket to kind of alleviating themselves and opening the next window. You close this current window of where you're at right now. Would that suck? Would that hurt? Would it be very popular? It would suck. It would hurt. It would not be very popular. But I think that is the Bucks' only way to building a contender over the next 3 to 5 years, rather than trying to capitalize on these next couple of years that you have with Giannis in his prime. But it has to make sense. So that's where I think the timing comes into play here. We are 1 week removed from the trade deadline. 1 week. The trade deadline is February 5th, next Thursday. These trades take a long time. I know that there have been, teams that have and GMs that have called the Bucks, that have at least started kicking the tires and knocking on the door to see what it would take to trade Giannis. Frankly, if it's at this point, I'd be shocked if Giannis was traded before the deadline, just because I know, and we all know how long some of these things can take. But I would be also equally as shocked if Giannis was a Buck next season.
Yeah, and I think part of this is how complicated the trade is, because they want young players and draft picks, and there aren't many teams that can offer them young players and draft picks right now, which means you have less teams bidding for the services, which destroys your leverage. Remember, Paul George was traded for a haul. When we talk about the mother of all trades, we tend to start and finish with Paul George, because he was traded for so many picks and so many players.
It was a terrible trade, by the way.
I mean, oh my God, yeah. And you start talking about
trade.
Yeah. I mean, SGA and then a bunch of first rounders. I mean, the fact that OKC is still sitting around reaping the benefit of these trades, it just shows how well run they are. If the Bucks want to run that process, I don't know that they can get that by next Thursday, because I think it could take a third team's involvement. We could be looking at massive pieces. That being said, if we do get fast movement, is there a place right now that you think makes the most sense for Giannis?
There are a lot of places that I think make sense with an asterisk. It's like, this makes sense, but like the New York Knicks come to mind as a place that would make a whole lot of basketball sense. That right now the Knicks are kind of, in an up and down and in a high and low kind of phase, that they were in a slump. Now they've won their last 3 games, but the Knicks haven't really found a whole lot of consistency. Karl Anthony Towns has proven that he's just not really fitting very seamlessly into Mike Brown's system. So Giannis wants to be with the Knicks. He has mentioned how he wants to be in New York. He's talked about what that would mean for him in a basketball sense, what that would mean in a personal sense, direct flight from JFK to home in Greece. It would be, a fair thing to think that Cat for Giannis would be at least the start of a trade. But if I'm Milwaukee, I'm not taking Karl Anthony Towns straight up for Giannis Antetokounmpo. No. I need some certainties for the future as well. So I think Giannis with the Knicks would make sense, but also, what do the Knicks have to offer the Bucks in terms of future assets? Like, sure, Karl Anthony Towns is fine for the right now, and maybe it makes the Giannis trade not hurt so much, because at least you're getting a superstar in return. Cat's no Giannis, but also Cat's no scrub either. But if I'm the Bucks, I need future assets. I need young players, and I need draft picks, and the Knicks just don't have that to offer. So the Knicks make sense, but with an asterisk, because I just don't think that they have a package that would make sense in return for the Bucks.
Yeah, that's the thing. Giannis makes sense to the Knicks. They don't have enough to offer to make sense for the other side of that trade. I keep going back to why Golden State could make sense, because Golden State they can offer 4 first-round picks and some pick swaps in there, along with some young players. I don't think that they have blue-chip talent that they can offer in return, but certainly the Warriors could offer the biggest haul of draft picks. But here's the problem. If I'm Golden State, why am I doing that deal? Like, hear me out here, because I think, Steve Kerr has made it clear that they don't think that they compete as currently constructed with the best teams in the West. And this might make them competitive, but I say might, because I'm not sure that Giannis isn't broken down at this point. So I'm going to rent Giannis for a couple of years, hoping that his body can hold up, and I have Giannis and Steph together, hoping that, we can put together in Golden State, maybe between that and Draymond, whatever pieces are left, they can put together enough action to try and compete with a younger, deeper, better Oklahoma City team. I don't think it does that for them, but I see some of that. But I feel like all Golden State is doing in that process is delaying the inevitability of a rebuild. And then once they get through whatever this championship window might be with Giannis, they've given away so much draft equity in return for Giannis that now they can't do the very thing that they are going to have to do in Golden State at some point, which is a rebuild. I honestly think it makes more sense long-term for Golden State's future over the course of the next 5 years. It makes more sense to trade away Steph than it does to trade Giannis into Golden State. I know they're not going to do it. I hear you. I'm just saying that at some point, I realize that our thirst for a championship right now makes us think you can go all in and it's worth it. I question if it is worth it if you have to mortgage so much of your future that you legitimately don't have a future for 5 to 10 years after you take this championship run. Getting out of the basement in the NBA, getting out of what's being worse than bad all the time in the NBA, I say is being irrelevant. Getting out of irrelevance is really difficult for the worst teams in the NBA. I don't see how Golden State even has a path to curing their inevitable irrelevance if they get rid of all of this draft equity to go get Giannis. So I just don't like, again, to your point, I think Giannis to Golden State would be wildly awesome for us. It'd give us more to talk about. And it'd be awesome for right now for Golden State fans because you go into it and say, well, you never know. Like, we got Giannis, we got Steph, we've got a chance. Like, it makes you feel that little drug of hope for a second. But I think the long-term damage it does to Golden State, and I do mean damage, I think is too much for them to actually be in this consideration. So again, I want this to happen, but I struggle to find the puzzle pieces to put together.
It makes sense in the opposite sense of the Knicks because the Warriors, I think, have what it takes to put together an attractive trade offer for Giannis. I would think that would be Jimmy Butler, Jonathan Kuminga, and 4 first-round picks. I would entertain that offer if I'm Milwaukee. But to your point, Giannis is 31 years old. What you're doing is just adding more age. And look, Giannis is still in his prime, but for how much longer? You're adding more age and injury to a team that's old, to a team that has gray in every single one of their starting 5 beards. So I don't know what that does for Golden State to make it worth their while to leverage their future. Is Golden State one Giannis away from being better than OKC, from being better than Denver, from competing with San Antonio? You can make the case that they are. I'm not totally and completely convinced, especially considering because Giannis told us he'd be out for the next 4 to 6 weeks. So you're getting what, a year and a half of Giannis at his peak, at his best? Maybe 2.5 years. Maybe you're extending that a little bit further. But how much longer is Steph going to be playing? So it's just all of these pieces. It would be awesome. It would be epic in terms of a brand standpoint, in terms of name recognition. But I don't know if Giannis is the missing piece for this version of the Golden State Warriors to be competitive in this season's West.
This is where sometimes Carolina gets so difficult in a video game society because, hear me out on this, between Madden and 2K, we've become such a trade-dependent society where we'll turn around and say, like we're playing the video game, I loaded it up in the trade calculator and it works. So this makes sense because I like these brands together. And if I'm playing the video game version of the NBA, certainly I love the concept of Giannis and Steph together with whatever else they want to give him, especially because we're sitting here trying to figure out if Kerr's even still going to want to be the coach of this team in a year. So you take care of all these little short-term things like you're playing the video game version. But part of the reason people do that is because when it's a video game, you don't have to worry about what things look like in your 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th season down the road. At some point, Golden State will have to worry about that. Now, maybe their answer is we don't want to worry about it today. And I'd be okay with that. But where I'm not okay with it is if you have to leverage so much of your future that you don't have one, then the only return that can be acceptable are championships. And I don't believe that Giannis, even as great as I think he is, and as much as I feel like I've been waving the Giannis fan flag for a very long time in this business, I don't think that Giannis alone suddenly makes them better than OKC or better than San Antonio. So what they're doing is they're putting themselves in a situation where they can have a nice little run, but you don't mortgage the entire future of your franchise for a nice little run.